which is, I think you're expecting way too much of the technology to tell me what yield is in July in any given year. I think that's just asking. And now you're talking about planted area. That's a different subject. There may be information that you could put off it. We don't have multiple years. You'd want multiple years of that data to see how it reflects actual planting. You'd want to say, okay, how does my sample look relative to the overall sampling that NASA's provided historically? So even if you thought that those data were good now, you'd want a decade, maybe 2 decades worth of data to figure out how those two pieces fit together before you'd make any change to how NASA's collecting this data. And this is the same on yields as well, too. I think it's way too early to make a conclusive, tell me what yields are going to be in July, unless you have something very extreme, like a drought, then yields are going to be lower. But in July, it's awful hard to tell what that crop's going to be. And so when you see people using satellite imagery to try and say, okay, we can beat NAS, they haven't been successful so far. And NAS does use satellite imagery to supplement what at the moment is a better technique of actually going out and looking and talking to farmers. That's a big part of their survey early on, is talking to farmers. And that's like when you think about the yield they came out with last year, heavily weighted towards what farmers were saying. That early yield estimate is largely weighted towards farmers' comments. So now, having said that, overseas, you talk about satellite imagery and weather data. We make much more use of that because we don't have these countries providing timely information on crop production. So we spend a lot of time crop masks, identifying crops, looking at vegetative health indices from satellites and weather data, and that information's only getting better. So we're making more and more use of that. You even see our FAS folks traveling around in these other countries with their smartphones, stopping, taking pictures of crops, moving the markers of the crop, identifying what crop it is, moving it into the field. At the end of the day, when they're done, they load it up and they use satellite imagery to go out and create a crop mask that says, I've shown you, here's a bunch of pictures of wheat and barley. Give me everything across North Africa that looks like wheat and barley. And because they've gone through taken hundreds of pictures, sampled what that crop looks like, using near-term satellite imagery, come up with a crop mask that says, here's what the area looks like in this country. So I think the advantages are overseas for sure.